is going on? It is Gino Bonino, and I want to welcome you guys and thank you for checking on my channel. I am Gino Bonino, and if you like what you see today, please leave a like and a comment. I would certainly appreciate it. I try to answer comments on a timely fashion whenever possible. In regards to my channel and comic book content in general, one thing that I find a little bit challenging is coming up with fresh stuff. The comic book community and the comic book hobby as a whole, although it's pretty big, let's face it, there's only so much you can talk about, and it's kind of like it's been talked about before. I love watching videos for people that do hauls. I love watching people that are picking comic books for the upcoming week, what they think is going to be a hot cover, hot books, and things of that nature. However, I find that sometimes we tend to see the same things over and over again, and I certainly don't want to add to that because I don't do it as well as other people. However, again, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm a fan. I like to watch it. I just, making it isn't my forte. But one thing that I do think is my forte is this. I've been doing this for a while, and one thing that I've been doing, I've kind of seen many different aspects of the hobby. I've seen it from a convention point of view, somebody that worked conventions on a weekly fashion. I've seen it from a big city point of view. I've seen it from a comic store point of view. I've seen it from just your average fan, from a kid's point of view, etc. And one thing that I try to do is to pick up little tips, little tricks, little perks, little, what have you, basically hacks as you're going along. And I think sometimes it becomes sort of our responsibility, if you will, to share these as we see them and share them with people, and hopefully somebody can learn something along the way, and somebody can find out a little trick to put in their arsenal of things as they're going along that makes their collecting life a little bit more enjoyable. So what I'm going to do, I think, instead of going into a bunch of them, I'm going to try to pick one. And it may, a little bit of a warning, if you're a longtime collector or if you've just started doing this maybe for a year or so, it's very possible that some of this stuff is things you already know about. So this may be old hat. It may be to the point where it's kind of like trying to tell you how to drink a glass of water. You're like, I know how to do that, man. But what I find is YouTube tends to be also a bastion for people that this is their first outlet of finding out how to collect comics and how things work and how pressing works and all that. It can be a little bit daunting for the brand new collector. So a lot of this stuff, again, may be old hat, it may be common sense, but I'm going in it and I'm going to present this from a point of view of somebody that maybe is kind of new to collecting in general. So the first thing I'm going to hit on today and is the person that's going to, and this one will probably affect everybody, longtime collectors, people that have just started doing it. You're going to have that situation usually where you're sending a book off and you may be sending it to somebody that you don't know real well. If you sold a book on eBay and it's over $100, there's always that little thing in the back of your head that says, I don't want to get scammed. I don't want to send my book off and the person either say it was damaged, say it wasn't what it was represented to be, etc. If you're sending it to a presser that you don't know, you may have that little thing in the back of your head like, I hope I get it back. If you're sending it even off to CGC, there's always a fear that, hey, they deal with many, many, many books on a daily basis. How do I know that my book doesn't get mixed up and I get sent back the wrong thing? So here's a little trick, a little tweak, if you will, that can kind of make you feel a little bit more comfortable and also gives you a bit of a heads up or a leg up, if you will, if somebody does try to play a trick on you and say that the book you sent is different than the one they say. And what it involves is basically taking a scan of the comic book in question. And I'm going to stop this, I'm going to get to my handheld, and I'll show you exactly how to do it and what I'm talking about. So I will be back on a different camera, and it'll make more sense. See you in a minute. Okay, this is part 2. This is our close-up of our tip of the day. This is our first tip. And again, what this is for is, in essence, to protect yourself from getting a book back different than what you sold or what you sent. There's many instances why you would send out a book, like I mentioned. You could have a facilitator that's getting a book of yours signed at a convention. You could be sending a book out to get pressed, an presser that you haven't yet established a relationship with. For example, people advertise on eBay and Instagram, and I see it all the time where people will say they press books and they haven't yet proven themselves, so you're not quite 100% sure. Thirdly, you may sell a book on eBay and you're worried that it may get sent back, that somebody's trying to pull a scam on you. Either they send it back a completely different book. They had one say that's in very fine condition. You send them one that's in near mint. They get it, they return it, and the one they return, sadly, is the very good one, or the one that's not as in good as condition, and they keep the near mint one. This is just a way to protect yourself. Is it 100%? No. Will it stand up in court? I don't know. But anybody that's worth their salt, anybody that's honest, isn't going to mind that you do this. And as I know a lot of pressers, for example, that want you to protect yourselves because they realize that, like anything else, it's a human-run business. And if they're pressing a lot of books, sometimes things can get mixed up. There's a level of verification, etc. I'm not saying this is a situation with me. What I'd like to do is have either a presser that has come recommended or somebody that I've used before if I'm sending my books out to a presser. So again, I'm not at all implying anything. I'm just simply saying this is a little tip, a little added level of protection, and to give you a peace of mind. Chances are 99% of the time that you're going to send something out, the right book's going to come back. There's a lot of honor in this profession, but unfortunately, because money's involved, there's also some scams, and this is just a way to kind of protect yourself from it. So, okay, so what you're going to do is this. We're going to use this as our example book. This is Spider-Man 363, which is the third appearance of Carnage, and it's not a super pricey book. It's not anything, real special. It's maybe a $10 book at the very max. However, think of it instead as a nice Golden Age book or Avengers 1 or Hulk 181, something of that nature. Something that basically does have some value to it. What you would do is you would take the book, and the first thing you would need is a flatbed scanner. I use this little HP number. There's many different types, and to be completely honest with you, they're not expensive at all. You can get them at, you can get them at pretty much any office supply place. They're less than $100. What's expensive on them is the ink, but the actual mechanics of the machine itself isn't terribly expensive. If you don't have a flatbed scanner, or you don't have room for it, whatever, you can also go to Kinko's. You can also go to your neighborhood library will have scanners and printers and things like that that you can use. That would work perfectly fine. And what you're going to do is you're going to go to the flatbed part of it. You're going to take your book. In this case, we're going to use this guy. Sorry about that. We're going to open it up. And we're going to put it on the scanner. What I would normally do is put a piece of backing paper behind it. I usually, when I scan stuff that I'm going to keep or whatever, I'll put something that kind of identifies it. I'll put a certain color backing paper, but for this, for the purpose of this, we're just going to leave it as is. You close it up, and now I went ahead and did this ahead of time to kind of save a little bit of time. And I use a piece of software called ViewScan, and what it does is it first gives you a preview of it, and if you like the way that it's lined up, you tell it to go ahead and scan. And it's doing that now. You would probably set it to pretty high quality scan. You'd want something at least, I'd probably in the 200s and 200 DPI and up. This is a scan of 150, but I would recommend getting something fairly high, especially if you want to be detail oriented, if you want to blow stuff up and look at it. And that's the result. So the image at the left is the scan. The image on the right is the preview. And that's really all you would do. I would suggest doing both the front and the back. It's less likely that you're going to find a book that measures perfectly, is the same as the other one if you do both a scan of the front and the back cover. And the file will live right on your desktop, and that's all you really need to do. You can leave it there, and it's sort of an insurance policy. If you get a book back and you're not 100% sure it's yours, then you can blow it up, print it out, and compare it against the one that you sent. If, however, you're perfectly fine with it, then you can do whatever you want with the files. You can trash them when the book's back home. Again, my recommendation, and this is just kind of a little added tweak, if you will, is to actually print it out in as high a quality as you can and stick it in the front if you're going to display your comics, because then if the scan gets faded by the sun, that doesn't hurt anything. If the book itself does, you'll never be able to get that back. It doesn't matter if this scan, I could print this out 300 times and it wouldn't matter. Whereas the book fades and it's a one-shot deal. So anyway, what I'd do is scan both the front and the back, like I mentioned. Put the files, leave the files either in a desktop or whatever you want to do. Now, if you do notice, typically it does date stamp them, as it did. Today is May 1st, and it put it 5/1/2019, which is what you want to do. I recommend leaving that on there as just proof. Again, would it hold up in court of law? Hard to say. But if, for example, you sent, and this, I hear this story every once in a while, somebody will sell somebody a book. The person claims that it got there damaged, or that it got there and it wasn't in the condition that it was supposed to be. They send back a book and it's not the same, and now they're stuck with it. This gives you kind of a little file or something like that you can send to eBay to prove that it was indeed the book that you sent. Again, it doesn't automatically mean you're going to win anything, but it just gives you a little added, just a little added proof of what you're saying. You could back it up. So I'm going to take the book, and now one thing you'll notice about comics, they're often different. Now this one's in a bag too, so it didn't matter that tape stuck. Let me show you what I'm talking about. These are two 363s. They're both direct versions. Neither one's a newsstand. If you look right here at the black that's in Carnage's eye, there's pretty much black there. Probably, I'm guessing, a couple millimeters at least, maybe a centimeter of black. You come over to this book, and you look at that same area. There's just a little bit. So this book was obviously trimmed differently. If you look here at the little splash that says, and their wall crawling pal, if you look, there's quite a bit of space between the orange and the edge of the book. And if you look at this one, there's none. In fact, it was cut off. And you'll notice that's more often the case than not, especially with books especially with books that were done in the 90s, but you'll also see it with Silver Age and things of that nature as well. So what this would prove, in essence, is if I sent out this book and I had a scan with proof of that black and proof of this, and I got this one back, it would be sort of easy to be able to blow up on my computer, open the file and say, hey, this doesn't match that. Furthermore, if they are a close match, but you just feel a little bit uncomfortable about it, what you can do is get some thin paper. This is actually too thick, but you can get some rice paper, or you can get a transparency. You can buy transparencies at, again, Office Depot or whatever, and teachers use them to put up on the wall when they want to teach a lesson and things of that nature. So you can buy transparencies. It will print on the transparency, and you can hold that, or if you had a piece of rice paper, right on your book, and you can compare the two. You can look real closely and say, does everything measure up properly? Again, both front and back. If it does, you're good. And if it doesn't, you can send the person an email and say, we've got a slight problem. This happened, and it might be something that, again, was just an oversight. They might have accidentally sent you the wrong book. It doesn't necessarily mean they're pulling a scam on you, but it just gives you a little bit of a peace of mind that what you sent is what you got back. And once again, I don't know any presser that is worth his salt, that is honest, that would be offended by knowing that you did this. It's not something, I'm not accusing anybody of anything. I think most people that deal in comics are completely trustworthy people. They don't want to get scams, so therefore they don't want to pull scams. And again, this entire hobby has sort of an honor system built into it, that you are doing the right thing. But once again, whenever you have money involved, you can get some people that are, unfortunately, are a little bit unsavory. Typically, they don't stick around long. They'll come and run a scam or two, and then they disappear in the wind. So luckily, they aren't able to scam a bunch of people, and word gets around. I mean, that's what's nice about people talking, is word gets around, and then they get found out, and they're gone really quickly. But for people that are honest, they typically don't have a problem with this whatsoever. So that is my very first tip of the day, if you will, hack of the day. It gives you a peace of mind. And again, I read all the time on Facebook about people sending out books and they're afraid that they didn't get the same thing back they sent. Most cases, it's just them being a little bit paranoid, but in some cases, it's probably true. So this just gives you that little bit extra level of protection. And once again, my recommendation is you would do both the front and the back of the book, because even if the front does line up, it is possible that books will, line up pretty closely to the front. But when you take both the front and the back measurements, chances are it's going to be more often the case than not, certainly, that something would be a little off if it wasn't the same book. That either the back cover would be a little bit different or the front cover would be a little bit different. Chances are it would be a combination of both. So that is it, guys. That is, once again, my hack of the day. I hope you learned a little something. I hope this comes in useful, gives you a level of comfort when you're sending out comic books to get pressed or graded or facilitated or signed, any of the above. Please feel free to leave a like if you learned something, or if you have something to add. I really do look forward to your comments. I know a lot of times people will take an idea and they'll run with it. They'll go one step further. They'll say, not only can you do that, you can do this with the scan. And they'll give me a use or an idea that I hadn't even thought of. And I definitely encourage that. So if you learn something, like it, please leave a thumbs up. And hopefully, again, I'll be back making a couple of these every once in a while. Just little tips and tricks and things of that nature that you can use in your collecting hobby life, and it'll make for a better community and hopefully, like I said, happier, more comfortable collectors. So thanks for watching, guys. This is Gino Bonino. I am out, and I will talk to you later. Bye for now.